Good morning. This is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncover No More. Do you see these stones? There's some money intermixed. I am charging the stones today. That is quite a lengthy process. With runes, rune stones, here, let me gently slide this a little bit to see they are covered so that their energies are here but protected. But I'll give you a peek. Can't see it. I reverently asked someone at a witch shop that is so gorgeous in Austin to throw away the bag. It was blue with white dots. When I bought this one from do you see the beading? How beautiful it is. And it's cloth. But it's also interesting because when I went to a new place of ministry in Austin for the first time, I'm going to not mention it right now because I'm not an advertisement. I'm so tired. But business must go on, and we all know that. There's a balance somewhere. There's actually a shop named Blue Elephant in the new place, which just confirmed I was on the right path as Sorceress Tara. And so yesterday I spent a lovely time there outdoors. And I'm getting asked, why are you wearing gloves? Oh, you're going to hats. It is common knowledge among other people groups than those of us who like to wear bikinis and other swimsuits and things. It is common knowledge that to stay cool, you cover up, you insulate your body. And I'm a part of that people group. That is a more ancient way. Do I swim? Yes, occasionally I do. And I have stories because my power in water is magnified for some reason that cannot be explained. But back to the elephant. So it took a long time. And then I had to, because I found a tiny bit of information from a discussion with somebody close up to me, found that the Nordic tradition did not treat women very well at all. I don't need to go investigate it. I've traveled through hell and dipped into its wickedness as tribe Judah elect for various reasons. And so when I do that, it is a solemn time where I am not a part of this world's order at all. But the woman that just went across the street to say hello to the new kitty neighbor, because kitty neighbor was thinking about coming and saying hello to me, and I did not want Kitty to cross the street. So I sat on the curb and talked. Kitty's not ready to be petted by me and may never be. That is Kitty. I'm not going to force myself on Kitty. But the owner had already told me the name, so I was able to have a little conversation. And then he or she, I think that's a she, went back onto their property, and I made sure my neighbor's cat did not cross the street, which is dangerous. And now I am here And I cannot begin to tell you how worthless this society tells me that I am, since all of my children are raised. And yet even my children have observed me through the years, finding beauty where nobody else could see it. And that is Sorceress Tara in a nutshell. I will find beauty where nobody else can see it. And poetry will come forth, and tears of joy, consternation, horror, you name it. I've cried every different way. This morning, I'm keeping it tapped down because I miss some people that I literally may never see again. And I'm a woman that has known since the age of 12 that life is much too short for these things that people cause other people to suffer. Life is much too short. That being said, my life runs so long. I have to take a deep breath and understand that life is actually much longer than that. So, I say all of that to say, I could show you, but I don't feel up to it this morning. I have a little paper box that's pretty, but I put 2 sets of Elder Futhark runes in their little books, reverently, and it's in a shelf that was given to me by someone who is actually having a dream come true that I told them that they would, and it is being made able. And I am thankful and grateful for that. And I repeat, life is much too short for relationship angst. Because while I can speak the truth, and it happens, I have been left to suffer. And that happens too. And I never deny the necessity and sometimes the stupidity of pain in our lives. Producing pain in someone else's life is being cowardly in some cases. And I have many of those cases in my life. I have cowards in my life. Oh, I can point to their bravery here and there, but no, not today. Today you are a coward to me, and you will change that, and you will see the beauty inside of thee and of me. And then you will have wished with all your heart that you had chosen differently, and exchanged love for what you put to purchase in your cart. Relationships come. Relationships die. Relationships grow old. And Kara Beaty-Coffey, in all blatant honesty, must tell you, my life was bartered for and sold. That being said, I can be King David sometimes. And my world is not to pretend. This is Robert Frost. I'm dealing with these stones now, because there's a whole story where I had some implements and I may find them again, but I don't think so, because what happens is somebody else is going to find them someday. Somebody else is going to find them someday, and won't know where they came from. But there's love in them, so they will be okay. They will be okay. But I accidentally put them to stuff that I was getting rid of, and is what I think, because they disappeared. That being said, I also had something flat out stolen at a coffee shop that I go to. So when I just probably went to the bathroom or went out to the car to get another something of my art stuff that I needed. So being more careful, because people cannot be trusted around people like me. Because indeed, we have an ability to supercharge things, and people like to play with that. I never have liked that tendency in human nature. That just because you don't like something doesn't mean you're not going to have to put up with it now, does it? So today, well, I'm going to read A Servant to Servants by Robert Frost. It's quite long. I've already spoken for 12 minutes. We'll come here back to the trees. What calms my raging soul? Music in my ears sometimes. Poetry. Just choosing to read poetry. You would be surprised how many people won't do it, though I have guided many people. Take the time. Indeed, I only turned on this device to do some blog work. I already had somebody. If you look at your phone, my phone is off. I am safe. Everyone I know is safe and have means by which to communicate. And now it's time for me to go to my once or twice a day turning on my phone. It isn't necessary for me to be happy to have that phone. It is really quite the opposite. Part of hell in any life in this day and age is discipling devices in your life. And that is why you have Kara and Beaty-Coffey at the Ministry of Uncover No More, reading poetry. I've been shut out of just about everybody's life. And I will tell you the two entities: jealousy and terror. People will not stay with faithfulness and reverence because of jealousy and terror. So be it. I will not speak cursing to it. It is human nature. But how I spend time downstairs in this house is what you will take note of. When I do and when I don't. That will be remembered, strangely enough. A Servant to Servants by Robert Frost. I didn't make you know how glad I was to have you come and camp here on our land. I promised myself to get down someday and see the way you lived, but I don't know With a house full of hungry men to feed, I guess you'd find, it seems to me, I can't express my feelings any more than I can raise my voice or want to lift my hand in parentheses. Oh, I can lift it when I have to. Did ever you feel so? I hope you never. It's got so I don't even know for sure whether I am glad, sorry, or anything. There's nothing but a voice like left inside that seems to tell me how I ought to feel and would feel if I wasn't all gone wrong. You take the lake. I look and look at it. I see it's a fair, pretty sheet of water. I stand and make myself repeat out loud the advantages it has, so long and narrow, like a deep piece of some old running river, cut short off at both ends. It lies 5 miles straight away through the mountain notch from the sink window where I wash the plates, and all our storms come up toward the house, drawing the slow waves whither and whither, and drawing the slow waves whiter and whiter and whiter. It took my mind off donuts and soda biscuit to step outdoors and take the water dazzle, a sunny morning, or take the rising wind about my face and body and through my wrapper, when a storm threatened from the dragon's den and a cold chill shivered across the lake. I see it's a fair, pretty sheet of water. Our Willoughby, how did you hear of it? I expect, though, everyone's heard of it. In a book about ferns? Listen to that. You let things more like feathers regulate your going and coming. And you like it here? I can see how you might, but I don't know. It would be different if more people came, for then there would be business. As it is, the cottage Len built, sometimes we rent them. Sometimes we don't. We've a good piece of shore that ought to be worth something, and may yet. But I don't count on it as much as Len. He looks on the bright side of everything, including me. He thinks I'll be all right with doctoring, but it's not medicine. Lowe is the only doctor's dared to say so. It's rest I want. There, I have set it out. From cooking meals for hungry hired men and washing dishes after them, from doing things over and over that just won't stay done. By good rights, I ought not to have so much put on me, but there seems no other way. Len says one steady pull more ought to do it. He says the best way out is always through, and I agree to that, or insofar as that I can see no way out but through. Leastways for me, and then they'll be convinced. It's not that Len don't want the best for me. It was his plan our moving over in, beside the lake from where that day I showed you we used to live, 10 miles from anywhere. We didn't change without some sacrifice, but Len went at it to make up the loss. His works a man's, of course, from sun to sun, but he works when he works as hard as I do, though there's small profit in comparisons. I've said that over and over. In parentheses, women and men will make them all the same. But work ain't all. Len undertakes too much. He's into everything in town. This year it's highways, and he's got too many men around him to look after that make waste. They take advantage of him shamefully, and proud too of themselves for doing so. We have 4 here to board, great good-for-nothings, sprawling about the kitchen with their talk while I fry their bacon. Much they care. No more put out in what they do or say than if I wasn't in the room at all. Coming and going all the time, they are. I don't learn what their names are, let alone their characters, or whether they are safe to have inside the house with doors unlocked. I'm not afraid of them, though, if they're not afraid of me. There's two can play at that. I have my fancies, it runs in the family. My father's brother wasn't right. They kept him locked up for years back there at the old farm. I've been away once. Yes, I've been away. The state asylum. I was prejudiced. I wouldn't have sent anyone of mine there. You know the old idea. The only asylum was the poorhouse and those who could afford, rather than send their folks to such a place, kept them at home, and it does seem more human. But it's not so. The place is the asylum. There they have every means proper to do with, and you aren't darkening other people's lives, worse than no good to them, and they no good to you in your condition. You can't know affection or the want of it in that state. I've heard too much of the old-fashioned way. My father's brother, he went mad quite young. Some thought he had been bitten by a dog because his violence took on the form of carrying his pillow in his teeth. But it's more likely he was crossed in love, or so the story goes. It was some girl. Anyway, all he talked about was love. They soon saw he would do someone a mischief if he wasn't kept strict watch of, and it ended in father's building him a sort of cage or room within a room of hickory poles, like stanchions in the barn, from floor to ceiling, a narrow passage all the way around. Anything they put in for furniture, he'd tear to pieces, even a bed to lie on. So they made the place comfortable with straw, like a beast's stall, to ease their consciences. Of course, they had to feed him without dishes. They tried to keep him clothed, but he paraded with his clothes on his arm, all of his clothes. Cruel, it sounds. I suppose they did the best they knew, and just when he was at the height, father and mother married, and mother came, a bride, to help take care of such a creature and accommodate her young life to his. That was what marrying father meant to her. She had to lie and hear love songs made dreadful by his shouts in the night. He'd shout and shout until the strength was shouted out of him, and his voice died down slowly from exhaustion. He'd pull his bars apart like bow and bowstring and let them go and make them twang until his hands had worn them smooth as any ox bow. And then he'd crow as if he thought that child's play the only fun he had. I've heard them say, though, they found a way to put a stop to it. He was before my time. I never saw him, but the pen stayed exactly as it was, there in the upper chamber, in the L, a sort of catch-all full of attic clutter. I often think of the smooth hickory bars. It's got so I would say, half fooling, it's time I took my turn upstairs in jail. Just as you will till it became a habit. No wonder I was glad to get away. Mind you, I waited till Lynn said the word. I didn't want the blame if things went wrong. I was glad, though, no end, when we moved out. And I looked to be happy, and I was. And I said for a while, but I don't know. Somehow the change wore out like a prescription, and there's more to it than just window views and living by a lake. I'm past such help. Unless Lynn took the notion, which he won't, and I won't ask him, it's not sure enough. I suppose I've got to go the road I'm going. Other folks have too. And why shouldn't I? I almost think if I could do like you, drop everything and live out on the ground, but it might be, come tonight, I shouldn't like it, or a long rain. I should soon get enough and be glad of a good roof overhead. I've lain awake thinking of you, I'll warrant, more than you have yourself some of these nights. The wonder was the tents weren't snatched away from over you as you lay in your beds. I haven't courage for a risk like that. Bless you, of course, you're keeping me from work. But the thing of it is, I need to be kept. There's work enough to do. There's always that. But behind's behind. The worst that you can do. is set me back a little more behind. I shan't catch up in this world anyway. I'd rather you'd not go unless you must. Strange enough, I've had the cousin who was crazy. He is in a state-run, probably, home for people like that. I've had people admit they would have rather that I had been mentally ill than deal with me, when all I was doing was dealing with quite a little bit of spiritual power, not just mine. And I will say it again, I will put my affairs in order. I've already declared executors of will. And I will be hated for it. And I cannot care. I've always been hated for my decisions. But as it concerns the property that I was disinherited from no good reason, we need to sell it. It has done enough damage. It's like this house in this poem, and I didn't know it till I read the poem. And this is going public. It will not be said face to face to this family of mine. I am never listened to. This is Beaty-Coffey of the Ministry of Uncovered.